I was watching TV in the den. My son-in-law walked in and clicked it off. "Go back to your room, old lady. This front room is mine now." My daughter's eyes fell to the floor. I stood up, gathered my keys, and left without offering a single word. The next day, a young man in a sharp suit appeared at the front door. He rang the bell. "Welcome back to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you tap subscribe and like the video." Now, let's slide back into the story. Stay with me to the end. You'll want to hear how it turns out. I'm Loretta M. Jackson, a black woman who learned early that folks will mistake kindness for surrender. I spent decades behind county counters where names on deeds decide who has to move and who gets to stay. That evening, the TV remote clicked and silence fell the den like a door slammed in an empty hall. I was settled in my green velvet armchair, which I had bought with the first Social Security check I got after my husband passed away 15 years ago. Fresh coffee cooled on the end table, and the kitchen smelled of peach cobbler. The television murmured low the news, and this was my quiet time when the joints eased, and I could simply live, serving no one. The front door banged as if a storm had broken into the house. I didn't look. I knew exactly who it was. Marcus walked in as if the deed was in his pocket. Behind him, my daughter Tiana carried shopping bags. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes on the floor as if apologizing for taking up space. I didn't move. Marcus stood right in front of the screen, cutting off the screen. He snorted as he always did when he saw me doing nothing. He picked up the remote and hit the red button. The screen blinked black. "To your room, old woman," he barked. "I've got the game on." The air thickened. I could hear his short, arrogant breathing, as if his shouting had purchased him a right. Very slowly, I shifted my gaze to Tiana. She stood in the kitchen doorway, her knuckles white on the handles of the shopping bags. Our eyes caught. I waited for one thing, the simplest thing, for her to say, "Don't you dare talk to my mother like that." Tiana lowered her head and started adjusting a bag as if something had shifted inside. That tiny gesture landed harder than any shout. Marcus's shout. Noise. My daughter's silence. Betrayal. A cold clarity washed over me. Not anger, not shame, just a clear, icy sobriety. 35 years at the county recorder's office teaches you one thing. Talk is cheap. Paperwork is permanent. I stood. My knees popped dryly. In that silence, the sound was like a formal seal. Marcus was already sprawling on my couch, unbuttoning the top of his shirt and grabbing a can of soda without even looking at me. In his world, I had long been just part of the furniture. I walked past him and turned into my room, not to lock myself in or weep as they probably expected. I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser, pulled out a stiff leather pouch for bank business, and from the bottom a set of keys and a blue elastic-banded folder. My fingers slid between the rough sheets of paper. A bill of sale, old but valid, a current deed of title. Owner, Loretta M. Jackson. The paper was yellowed at the edges, its power was ironclad. In the mirror, I saw my short grey hair, my glasses on a chain, my linen trousers, and a navy blouse. I looked like the grandma folks underestimate. That was my main tactic. As long as grandma feeds the wolves, they feel like kings. The minute I closed the lid on the pot, the king's paws turned to putty. I returned to the den. Marcus had already turned on the sports channel and cranked the volume. Tiana was clattering dishes, a voluntary silence instead of a stand. I walked towards the front door. My heel clicked on the hardwood floor. Marcus turned his head, smirked, and raised his soda can. "Taking a stroll, Loretta?" he sneered. Don't get lost. At your age? I didn't give him the satisfaction of an answer. I turned the lock. For a second, I looked around the house, the framed print of the Savannah riverfront, the rug I vacuumed every Saturday, my son-in-law's back, my daughter's shadow in the kitchen. I touched the cluster of keys in my pocket. The cold metal was invigorating. I walked out, closing the door quietly, but firmly, like setting a period at the end of a sentence. Outside, the air was sharp and cool. I wasn't cold. I exhaled, locked the front gate from the outside, walked to the avenue, and flagged a cab that pulled up. Where to? The Grand Hyatt downtown. I took out my phone in the car. My fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from power. I scrolled through my contacts to a name I hadn't called in ages, but knew would answer. Malcolm B. Whitaker, attorney at law. We used to work near each other, him on property disputes, me on deeds. Loretta, it's nearly 9 o'clock. What's going on? I woke up, I said, looking at the city lights. I need your help. I have court tomorrow morning. Why the rush? My mental and property health. I'm listening. I want to remove 2 people living there, but you live with your daughter and son-in-law. That's right. A pause. He knew me from my signatures on title rejections. Where others saw maybe, I saw absolutely not. What did they do? My daughter stayed silent. I left, and I won't return until they are gone. I understand that's moral abuse at least. But you don't need pity. You need the law, right? The house is mine. They've lived here for 4 years without a lease, all at my expense. I need a notice to vacate. I am terminating the gratuitous use of the property and demanding they vacate the home. It has to be served in person. I'll send my junior associate, Jamal P. Harris, first thing tomorrow. He's quiet, professional, sharp in a suit, straight out of the box. He delivers the news clearly. He'll do. Standard is 30 days. That's fine. And include a warning in the text. 24 hours to understand the reality. And upon vacating, they will be billed for back rent and a penalty for holding over. Accepted. You are determined. I'm wounded, and a wounded woman who knows her rights is dangerous. Draft the papers. I'll be at your office by 8. I'll sign before court, then send Jamal to my house. The cab rolled to a stop at the hotel. The doorman threw open the door with more attention than my son-in-law had shown me in 10 years. Can I help with your luggage? I've only got my purse, I said quietly, and the dignity I just reclaimed. The room welcomed me with the scent of lavender and clean corners. A large TV was opposite the bed. I turned on my favorite channel and set the volume to my liking. I ordered soup and a glass of Cabernet. I ate slow and steady. My thoughts were at the house, but they were now my thoughts. I knew their morning routine by heart. Marcus sleeps late, grouchy. He's always tired. Tiana runs around smoothing his edges. I pictured the door of my house, the intercom button, a confident finger pressing it. This wasn't a call for tea. This was the call of the law, the first gong. I fell asleep quickly and soundly like a person who has taken the wheel. I woke up with the sun, took a shower, the same clothes, but a new posture. I went to Mr. Whitaker's office. Signatures, dates, property details. Every stroke of my pen sounded like a final judgment. Jamal is heading out. Andrew nodded toward a tall young man with a leather briefcase. 20 minutes, and he'll be at your fence. Perfect. I put my bag down and sat in the reception area. I'll wait here. Panic always remembers that it has a mother and a mother-in-law. The coffee from the machine smelled sweet. Choni were over there in my den, A different legal music was beginning. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't sprinting between the stove and others' whims. I was simply waiting. 9:30. My phone vibrated on my knee. The day had begun. Tiana was blinking on the screen. I let it ring a few beats, and only then did I swipe my finger across. "Mama, Mama, for heaven's sake!" Her voice broke into a shriek. "There's a man here. Jamal with a document. Marcus is screaming. What is happening? Where are you?" I held the receiver away from my ear to avoid his background shouting. "Jamal is the attorney's junior," I said calmly. "Ask your husband to lower his voice." But it says, "Eviction notice, 30 days. He just Tiana. For the first time in years. I'm the sanest I've been in years. Read the paper. Do what it says. The fewer screams, the better." I ended the call. The small red button returned silence to me as easily as flipping a switch on a bedside lamp when I was a child. The office door opened slightly. Malcolm B. Whitaker peeked over his glasses. "Daughter," I nodded. "The curtain has risen on schedule." Jamal served the papers. "We have the signatures and the attachment inventory. Now we wait." I settled into the reception chair. The vending machine coffee smelled like caramel. I looked at the hands, but wasn't thinking of time. I was thinking of how, for 4 years, I had shrunk myself in my own house to the size of a foot tool so as not to disturb their moods. How I ate the burned edges of pie, leaving the center for the king of the front room. How I watched TV shows with headphones so as not to interfere with their conference calls. How I paid triple the utility bill and stayed silent. I opened my purse and pulled out a sheet folded into quarters. A pension statement. The lifetime payout from my banker husband. A couple of stable investment accounts. The figures stood neatly like soldiers. Those numbers meant I could live. Those numbers meant I didn't have to gravel. Next, a printout of transfers, the down payment for their black crossover, a gift for the young couple, temporary top-ups when their car payment almost bounced. The purpose of the payment, family support. My hand sometimes shook, but the signature was straight as a ruler, the habit of paperwork. The phone shuddered again. "Tiana." I flipped it face down, then a text message from Marcus arrived. "Come home. Let's talk." "No, Mum, please, no." I flicked the notifications away like crumbs from a table. Malcolm B. Whitaker walked into the hall. "Tea?" he offered. "I want something else," I replied. "I need to shut off what's in my name." "Which ones?" "Everything tied to my name. The fiber optic internet, the cable with the sports package, the landline, and the supplementary card Tiana uses for groceries. Not to cancel, but to suspend. I can reactivate them when the house is mine alone again." He gave a thin smile. "That will be felt." "Yesterday cut deep," I said. "Today is just consequences. They are different things." I took a small notebook from my purse. On a clean page appeared a simple plan. Step 1, legal completed. Paper served. Deadlines and consequences outlined. Step 2, financial. Turn off the taps. Let the king of the front room learn the price of his kingdom. Step 3, silence. No scandals, no justifications, only facts. The phone vibrated again. I glanced at it. Tiana was typing long, frantic messages. "He's furious. We've been shamed. People were watching. Where are you? Let's talk." I put the phone down and said nothing. Today, my nothing was the answer. "Is there a decent clothing store nearby?" I asked, putting the notebook away. The Gallery Mall is 2 blocks away, Malcolm B. Whitaker said. What are you planning? I am dressed like a grandma, I said, meeting his eyes. And I'm going to set boundaries. I need a look, a uniform. You're dangerous when you're calm. Now, he said it without smiling. I'm just returning to myself, I replied, taking my purse and heading for the door. Outside it was bright and dry. I walked quickly, not looking back. The windows reflected me, stiffer, with a straighter back. My mind was clear and steady. Where to go, what to say, whom to call. No pity, no revenge, only order. At the mall entrance, I paused for a second, ran my fingers over the strap of my purse, and exhaled. First the uniform, then tap after tap. The Gallery Mall was 2 blocks away. I walked briskly as if going to work, shoulders straight, step measured. Inside, the light, the window displays, the music from the ceiling. Her gaze was attentive, without cooing. I need a uniform, I said. Calm, businesslike. Jenna nodded and disappeared between the racks. She returned with dark blue straight-leg trousers, a white cotton blouse, and a beige linen blazer. In the fitting room, the fabric settled just right. The trousers sharpened my posture, the blouse was crisp, and the blazer pulled everything together. I put on leather pumps with a low but distinct heel. The tap-tap on the tile was like a metronome. I folded my old clothes into a bag. Give these to the charity box, I said. Let them serve someone else. I sat on a soft ottoman by the fitting room, took out my notebook and phone. First call to the service provider. Good afternoon. I am the contract holder. I request a temporary suspension of services at this address. Internet, cable TV, sports package, and a landline number. Reason repairs start today. The operator read the required warning. The signal would be disconnected within 2 hours. Discounted monthly fee confirmed. Second call to the bank. I am the primary account holder. I request you block the supplementary card in Tiana Jackson's name. Reason security. Please lower the online limits and keep SMS alerts only on my number. Done, a voice replied. The changes are now in effect. I hung up. My stomach growled, not from hunger, but from the adrenaline slowly dissipating. On the second floor in a quiet restaurant, I ordered a mushroom risotto and a glass of dry white wine. I placed my phone next to me face down. Spoon, fork, breathe. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't eating stealthily or on the run. 10 minutes later, my palm felt a short vibration, a text message from the bank. Transaction declined. $85. Butcher shop. Prime ribeye. I smiled. Small, steady. A short, unsentimental smile. Almost immediately, another message flashed. The cards aren't working. Call the bank. We are at the register. Marcus's number. I calmly dialed the response. It isn't a glitch. It's a freeze. The credit and the trust both expired yesterday along with your game. I put the phone face down and finished my risotto slowly, tasting every grain. I paid the check with my card. I passed through easily, like walking through the door of my own house. At the exit, I bought a bottle of water, caught a cab, and returned to the Grand Hyatt. The lobby was cool, smelling of cleanliness, the rug springing beneath my feet. In the room, I slipped off my new shoes, placed the keys on the nightstand. The familiar metallic jingle answered with calmness inside me. I turned on the TV to a music channel and slept for an hour. My body took what it needed. I woke to the clear ring of the landline. That sound rarely means nothing. Hello, reception. Good afternoon. Your daughter is downstairs in the lobby. She urgently asks to come up, or rather asks you to come down. She says it's urgent. I looked at the clock. The perfect time for a clear conversation without midnight hysterics. I washed my face, smoothed my hand over the lapel of the beige blazer, and adjusted the chain on my glasses. The same woman looked back at me in the mirror, but her spine was straighter. "Tell her I'll be right down," I said calmly and hung up. I took the keys from my purse. Today they jingled differently, like the bells on a door behind which order has long been waiting. I inhaled deeply, pressed the elevator button, and stepped inside. Tiana was waiting for me downstairs, and not just her. The elevator doors slid open softly. In the Grand Hyatt lobby, Tiana paced between the couches. Her blouse was wrinkled, her bun messy, and there were shadows under her eyes. She saw me in the beige blazer, and it was as if she had walked into glass. She stopped. She stepped forward and froze 2 steps away, blocked by my gaze. "What is all this? The internet is dead. Cable 2. The card won't go through. Marcus is losing it. Where are you? Let's go home." "Sit down." I pointed to an armchair. "We are in a respectable place." She obediently sank onto the edge, clasping her hands. "Mum, let's talk like family." She switched to a soft, placating tone, the one people use with children and the elderly. "He just had a bad day yesterday, but he already texted you apologizing. Let's go. I'll make tea. We'll talk it through." "I am not offended, Tiana," I said evenly. "I have made a decision. The house is mine. You have lived here for 4 years without a lease. I am giving you 30 days to move out. As of today, 0 utilities. This isn't revenge. It's structure." "But he has to work." She flared up. "He has calls, deadlines. You are ruining his reputation." "Let him work from a co-working space, from a cafe, or from his mother's house," I countered. The internet, the TV, and the supplementary card were paid for by me. Not anymore. "You are not a life-sustaining necessity on my budget. You are an expense which I have now closed." She sucked her lips in. "You're embarrassing us," she whispered. "Everyone saw it at the store today." "The card failed. Humiliation is being thrown out of my own den," I said quietly. "It is eating the burned edges of pie while leaving the center for the king. Today, no one is humiliating anyone. Today, everyone pays their own bill." She tried to mount a defense, but we were saving. We had money. I asked. "Over 4 years, the savings should be nearly $100,000 just on living expenses and bills." Her gaze drifted sideways. Her shoulders fell. "He said it was tied up in business, investing. He would show me later." "He will show you." I nodded. "Tomorrow at 10 o'clock sharp at Mr. Whitaker's office. You are both invited. We will see what your business is. You called a lawyer against your own family." She was testing me. "I called the rules." I replied. "Family is respect. Not go to your room, old woman. And the front room is mine. Tomorrow is about the rules." She sighed, and her voice broke. "If we leave, he's going to file for divorce." His words stung, not with pity, but with crystal clarity. I leaned forward, covering her clasped hands with mine. "If your marriage is held together by my square footage and my bank accounts, that's not family, Tiana." She snatched her hands away as if burned. "You've turned cruel, old and cruel." "I've become a grown woman again," I said calmly. "At 68 years old, you are 40. You have a head start." We were silent. In the lobby, teacups clinked softly. Someone walked by, casting a curious glance and then looking away. "Just turn the internet back on," she tried again. "No internet. I said. But your voice is fine. Tomorrow we talk at the attorney's office. Today, silence. Tiana stood up, adjusted the strap of her purse, searched my face for my former softness, and didn't find it. She backed toward the exit. I'll be there. She tossed over her shoulder. Be there at 10 sharp. I nodded. She left quickly. I watched her go, and only then did I feel the tension drain out of me. Not a loss of strength, but a normalization of breath. I took the stairs up. I needed the walk. In the room, I turned on the desk lamp and opened my laptop. A message was blinking in my inbox from Malcolm B. Whitaker. Loretta, notice served. Marcus's corporate lawyers have confirmed receipt. He's been sending internal emails pressuring you. The director was copied. Reprimand likely. Negotiations tomorrow at 10 o'clock sharp. Both will attend. Sincerely, A.V. Whitaker. I closed the lid. Haste is the sister of fear. The king of the front room was already making mistakes. I opened my phone, scrolled through the setting, and turned off the family location app, the same one Marcus had installed for my safety years ago. Geolock access prohibited flashed on the screen. Good. My dot on the map belonged to me again. I took the keys out of my purse and spilled them onto the nightstand. The metal jingled cleanly like a new password. Outside, the light stretched along the avenue. The air conditioning hummed steadily. I sat on the edge of the bed and felt it. Order inside. Not victory, not euphoria, just order. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the conference room door would open and 3 people would walk in. Him, my daughter, and the law. The conference room was cool. The air conditioning was blowing cold air. I asked to be seated at the head of the table. To my right, Andrew V. Whitaker. Neat folders, pen parallel to the edge. On the table, my driver's license, the deed of title, the notice of termination of gratuitous use. My armor today was simple: a beige blazer, a direct gaze, and paper. The door clicked. The paralegal murmured, "They're here." Marcus stumbled in first. His usual arrogance was faded. A wrinkled shirt, his tie loose like a noose, dark circles under his eyes. Behind him, Tiana clutched her purse to her chest, her eyes glued to the floor. "Please be seated," Malcolm B. Whitaker said, with his baritone like a judge's gavel. "I'm not here for a greeting," Marcus snapped immediately, pulling out a chair. "Enough with the show. We've lived there for 4 years. We have rights." I looked over my glasses. I paused deliberately so his anger would be audible. "Rights are exactly why we are here," I said calmly. "The house is my sole property. You are using it at the owner's goodwill. I have terminated that. The notice is on the table. The deadline is 30 days. There's something called adverse possession," he shot back. His words tripped over each other. "We possessed it openly as owners. Have you even seen the law?" "I have." I smiled slightly. "And I worked with it for 35 years. Adverse possession applies when the owner doesn't live there, doesn't pay, and doesn't object. I live there, I pay, and I object. You are not owners. You are temporary and loud users." Marcus's jaw clenched. He turned his eyes to Malcolm B. Whitaker, seeking support. "The notice is proper," the attorney confirmed smoothly. "Service was executed. Upon expiration of the deadline, a lawsuit will be filed for eviction and recovery of fair market rent from the date of the notice." "This is illegal." Marcus raised his voice. "She cut off our internet, our funds, emotional distress." "I'm suing. Internet is not a life-sustaining utility," Malcolm B. Whitaker said, unblinking. "If you want it, connect it yourself and pay for it." "Tiana, tell her." He jabbed his finger at my daughter. She's destroying our family. Tiana blinked. Her lips trembled. And then there was silence again. I slid a folder toward her. Let the paper speak, I said. Marcus, for 4 years, you were supposedly saving for a condo. Nearly $100,000 in savings just on living expenses and bills. Where is the money in business? He tried to smirk. Investing, futures, leverage. You old folks wouldn't understand. I want specifics. I pulled a stack of papers from an envelope, 3 loan default notices, and here the broker statement. A margin call. Balance below 0. Marcus lunged for the paper, but Malcolm B. Whitaker's hand landed first. Put it down. Let your wife read it. Tiana took the sheets. Her fingers shook. Her eyes darted over the figures and lines. I saw the moment of realization. Her shoulders slumped, her mouth dropped open. One heavy tear, not of pity, but of cold awareness. 0, even a deficit, she whispered. Yes, I said. Softer but firm. Nothing was saved. There were bets, games, $85 prime ribeye, and imported beer. All on my card. I would have made it back. Marcus flared up. The market is turning around. I just needed one more infusion. And that's why you needed my front room. I raised an eyebrow. To lose louder and to send me to my room in the process. He clenched his fists. The anger in his eyes was undercut by fear. I'm your son-in-law, he forced out. Family is supposed to help. Family is respect and boundaries. I stood up. That movement was enough to make everyone straighten. Terms, I stated, clipping my words. 30 days to move out. The internet, cable, and supplementary cards will not be returned. If I hear screaming when I visit to collect my winter clothes, I will immediately call the police and file a report for threats. Marcus slumped in his chair as if his internal bolts had been unscrewed. Tiana covered her face with her hands. The horror of the air conditioning became audible. And one more thing. I turned to my daughter. This is your choice. Over these 30 days, you decide whether you continue to drown with a man who lied and dragged you down, or whether you swim to the surface. I am a mother, but not a bank and not a free cafeteria. Tiana lowered her hands. For the first time in a long time, she looked straight at me. But if I have nowhere to go, she whispered harassingly, you will find a place. You work, rent a studio apartment, sell the crossover, manage your own accounts. I have paid for my lessons in full. I gathered my papers into the folder. Andrew V. Whitaker stood up. This meeting is concluded. Jamal will handle all further contact in writing. I walked around the table. Passing Marcus, I stopped for half a step. You can press the TV remote of your own life as much as you like, but it doesn't work on my house anymore. In the hallway, the light seemed warmer, the air cleaner. I walked to the elevator and heard the scraping of a chair behind the door. Tiana's choked whisper, Marcus's short curse. The elevator chimed, the doors closed. My phone vibrated in my purse. Tiana. I didn't answer immediately. I took 3 deep breaths and only then pressed accept. I held the phone in my palm. 3 breaths and then I answered. Mama. Tiana's voice was low like after a cold. I didn't get in his car. Where are you? Downstairs in the parking lot. He's screaming in the car, hitting the steering wheel. I walked away. He told me to get in, but I couldn't. Good, I said calmly. Walk. Breathe. Don't rush back to where screams are waiting. She was silent. I could hear the roar of traffic fade in the background. He says you broke the family. Unplugged internet doesn't break a family, Tiana. Lies and screaming do. Silence again. Thank you, Mama. Barely audible. It hurts, but I can see. Seeing is the first step, I said. Tomorrow at 10 at Whitaker's office. Can you make it? I can. We breathed into the phone for another second, and I hung up. The street smelled of hot asphalt. I left the office, raised my face to the sun, and flagged a cab. To a nice restaurant, I replied. By the window with a view of the riverfront, I ordered clam chowder, a salad, and a glass of dry white wine. I placed my phone face down. My teaspoon clinked lightly against the glass. Sunbeams danced on the tablecloth. I ate slowly, like a person who is her own mistress again. My phone briefly vibrated. Messages from the bank. Transfers to protected account complete. Supplementary cards closed. Change of beneficiary on life insurance processed. Confirmation in your online account. I smiled with nobody watching. All loose ends tied up. No one else would run into my signature. Almost immediately, an email from Malcolm B. Whitaker. For your control, upon expiration of the 30 days, Jamal will be at the gates at 8 sharp with the handover document and inventory. If there are threats, call. Regarding Marcus's employment, the reprimand has been confirmed. I drank the wine to the bottom, like closing a case file. A switch flipped in my head. The final act was scheduled. I paid with my card. I walked along the water. People argued over trivial things. Kids zipped by on scooters. The wind smelled of river air and heated metal. In a store window, I saw myself. The same woman, but brighter inside. Not a victim, not a hero, just an adult. I returned to the Grand Hyatt in the evening, took off my blazer. The armor could hang on the hanger. I spread the keys, documents, and a small notebook on the nightstand. I opened a clean page and wrote, Day 30, plan. Morning Jamal, deed and keys. I'm not home. No scenes. Evening. Open windows. Mop the floor with warm water and disinfectant. Scrub the rug with a stiff brush. The phone rang. Tiana, I'm at Denise's on a folding cot. It's fine. He called dozens of times. I blocked him. Good girl, I said. Get some sleep. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Mum, were you ever afraid of being alone? I was, I answered honestly, until I realized it's worse to be in a place where you don't exist. She sighed and said goodbye. In the shower, the water washed away the stickiness, the layer that had clung to me for years in my own den. I put on a simple nightgown, lay down on top of the comforter, and left the music softly playing in the background. The room was filled with an honest silence, the kind where you can hear your own breathing. In the morning, I went down to the cafe for oatmeal, coffee, and water. A man at the next table frowned at the news. In my life, the main headlines had already been released. Before leaving, I stopped by Malcolm B. Whitaker's office to sign final paperwork, cover letters, and Jamal's power of attorney. We spoke briefly, professionally. Keep going, Loretta. This is the right move, he said. I'm just doing what's mine, I replied. Outside, the sun was warm. I went to the salon. I wanted my hair to match my spine. The stylist quickly trimmed the tired ends. The grey gleamed like pure silver. In the mirror, the same face, but the gaze was no longer waiting for someone else's decision. It was the gaze of a person with the keys in her own pocket. At an intersection, I stood at a red light and smiled. It was so simple when the rules were followed on the road and at home. My phone beeped briefly. Jamal confirmed. Day 30, 8 o'clock sharp. We'll be at the gates. We will verify the locks and complete the inventory. I put the phone in my purse. The clasp clicked dryly like a seal. In the evening, I returned to the Grand Hyatt, turned off the light, and slightly opened the window to let in the city noise exactly as much as I wanted. The keys lay on the nightstand. I picked them up. The metal was warm. The next day, day 0, he would enter my house, not with a shout, but with the screech of a moving truck's tires. On the 30th day, I woke without an alarm. The light in the window was even, like a sheet of paper before a signature. I had breakfast, placed my phone face down, and drove out of the city to a spa. I would not be home today. Jamal called. I'm at the gates. The moving truck has arrived. They're starting. Proceed by the inventory, I said. I'm available by phone. Next was water, steam, and herbal tea. I stared at the ceiling and thought of only one thing. Tonight, I will open the windows and wash the floor. That's all. At 11 o'clock, my phone briefly vibrated. Marcus made noise, but he signed. Keys handed over. Inventory completed. A couple of holes in the walls from mounts. Furniture marks. Locks intact. 12:30. They are gone. I put the phone back. No anger, no joy. Just a fact. That was the end of that chapter. At 2, I stopped at a hardware store. Gloves, a mop, rags, floor cleaner. On the way, I called a painter recommended by Malcolm B. Whitaker. Can you start tomorrow by 9? The den in the hallway. Color peach. We can, a man's voice replied. We'll be done in 1 day. At the gates, the key turned easily, as if the house itself had exhaled. I walked in and stopped. The den was empty. Footprints from the couch legs on the floor. Ugly holes in the wall. The air was heavy and stale. I threw open all the windows. A draught swept from the kitchen to the garden, stirred the curtains, and carried out the remnants of someone else's life. I put on the gloves. First the shelves and baseboards, then the corners where dust had accumulated for later. I gathered the old magazines no one read into a garbage bag. I wiped the framed print of the Savannah riverfront and hung the painting lower, as was comfortable for me, not as was trendy. The floor got warm water twice, the rug a stiff brush. The house came back to life with every movement. By evening, I put the kettle on. The silence was not empty, but golden, like fresh wax on the parquet floor. Then a short, polite ring. I knew who it was. Come in, Tiana, I said at the threshold. The coffee just brewed. She walked in slowly, looking around. It's peach, I nodded. We sat opposite each other. 2 mugs on the table, a plate of pie. Tiana held her mug with both hands, grasping the warmth. I rented a studio apartment, she said, looking at the steam. It's small. The neighbor upstairs likes loud music. The ceiling is low, but it's mine. I pay for it myself. I took on full-time work, and I filed for divorce. The Pruno lawyer is processing the papers. I nodded. A warm, quiet, unsentimental feeling rose inside me. That's the right path, I said. It will hurt. Then it will settle. He says you broke up the family. She smiled faintly. And I realized you just stopped feeding the lie. We were silent. Outside the window, the garden rustled like new sheets. Thank you for saying no, she added, placing her palm over mine. While you were patching the holes, I couldn't hear myself. Hearing yourself is not a luxury, I said. It is order. She inhaled deeply. Mama, can I come over as a guest? No keys, no staying over, just tea and conversation. That's exactly what you should do, I replied. The door is open for guests. It's temporarily closed for tenants. We hugged briefly, an adult embrace. On the porch, she adjusted the strap of her purse and walked toward the gate. She walked straight, not looking back, like a person who chose her own pace. I returned to the den. The peach walls glowed softly. The notebook was on the end table. M-sharp tea with the neighbors. My phone blinked with a message from Denise. Loretta, Marlene is crying. Her son is pressuring her to sign the house over to him. Investment, Mum. I'll buy you a better one later. She's afraid to say no, afraid he'll get mad. Can we come over tomorrow? Come at 4 o'clock, I typed. Kettle and papers are ready. I signed the bottom of the page and closed the notebook. The house was clean and warm, and this cleanliness finally had a purpose. Tomorrow, the doorbell would ring, but it would no longer be a disaster. It would be a beginning. By 4 o'clock on Wednesday, I boiled the kettle, took out my folder of documents, and placed pens, blank sheets, and envelopes on the table. M. The house smelled of peach cobbler and fresh paint. The peach walls seemed warmer than usual in the soft sunlight. The bell rang briefly. Denise arrived first, then Yvette, and almost immediately they ushered in Marlene, hunched over with red eyes. My son is rushing me to sign the house over to him, she said from the doorway. Investment, Mama. I'll buy you a better one later. I poured the tea. Let's start simply. Gifting the house is forever. You can't take it back. If you want to leave something to someone, write a will. As long as you're alive, the property remains yours. For a last resort, we can discuss a life estate, but that's careful work. No rushing. Denise nodded. And don't give passwords to anyone. Not to the kids, not to the grandkids, for their games. That's right. I slid a sheet of paper toward Marlene. Here is a phrase for you to start the conversation. I am not ready to change the owner of the property. To think about it, yes. To sign? No. Your son will push. Repeat the phrase word for word. If he starts yelling, leave the room. Close the door. You only sign papers when your head is calm. Yvette snickered. Next, you'll be giving her the lawyer's number. I will. I nodded. It's Jamal, Malcolm B., Whitaker's associate. He doesn't yell, and he reads the fine print quickly. But it's best not to sign anything on emotion or on weekends when the county office is closed. We sat and wrote down short bullet points. Will instead of a gift deed, separate accounts, a receipt for every penny borrowed, prohibition on shared passwords, a power of attorney only limited, and with an end date. I showed them where to find the owner's name on their property tax records, and I explained that staying with Mum for a year turns into a lifestyle after 4 years if you don't call things by their names. Marlene initially flinched at every word, no, but by the end she straightened up and asked for more tea. Girls, I feel lighter, she said. We're here every Wednesday, Denise replied. At 4. Your tea, your questions. They left differently than they had come, not quieter, but more assured. I washed the cups, wiped the table, and threw open the windows. The garden smelled of wet grass. The house felt light. Tiana stopped by at 8. She knocked like a guest. Can I come in? Tea still warm. She took off her jacket, walked over to the peach wall, and ran her hand over the paint. It's beautiful, she said quietly. Warm. A house should be warm. We sat down. She held the mug with both hands, taking the warmth. I was at the lawyer's, she said, looking straight ahead. The divorce is progressing. Full-time work is steady. I don't want supplementary cards for milk anymore. But sometimes, can I come over as a guest? No keys, no staying over, just tea and conversation. That's exactly what you should do, I replied. The door is open for guests. For tenants, it's permanently closed. That's not cruelty. It's a rule. She nodded, thought for a moment, then smiled slightly. You know what? I miss your no. I spent my whole life learning your yes, and now I'm learning your second word. The no is not about offense. I said it's about boundaries. Yours, mine. Any adults. We sat in silence. In the kitchen, the clock ticked softly. Outside, the wind sighed, swaying the rowan tree. Tiana stood up. Thank you, Mama, she said, hugging me briefly like an adult. If you hadn't turned off the utilities that day, I never would have heard myself. Hearing yourself is adult life, I replied. Go on. I have a meeting tomorrow at 4. Don't let me down in front of the neighbours. She smiled and left. Her step was steady without looking back. In the hall, an unknown number blinked on the nightstand. I could recognize those calls even without a name. I almost reached for it, but stopped and calmly pressed block. There is much news in life, but taking calls about other people's crises is not my obligation. I walked through the house kitchen hall den. My documents were neatly stacked on the shelf. The Savannah riverfront print was hung where it was comfortable for me. In my study, a clean notebook. I sat down and opened it. On the first line, I wrote the house, the owner's story, not for Tiana, but for myself, and for those who are still sitting in their green armchairs, afraid to pick up the remote. I wrote simply, how fear disguises itself as care, how habit drowns out your voice, how one phrase, to your room, old woman, exposes the whole scheme, how documents give you back your spine, and how unplugged internet can suddenly turn on your brain. I wrote that you cannot give away yourself or your house, not out of love nor out of pity, that living together without respect is not family, but a hostage situation, and that a timely no saves better than 1,000 yeses. Then I put the notebook away in the drawer, returned to the den, and ran my palm over the back of the green armchair. I sat down. The TV remote lay on the end table, the most ordinary black device. I held it in my hand. It was no longer a symbol of someone else's power, just a thing. I turned on the TV and found the music. The violin played purely without hesitation. No footsteps from the hall. No turning off. No to your room. I sat with my eyes closed, listened, and without rushing increased the volume by 1 notch, exactly as loud as I liked it. Not quieter, not louder. Enough, I said aloud. And suddenly I understood that the word meant much more now. It meant I was adult enough to set conditions in my own home. It meant I had enough strength not to save those who weren't asking for salvation, but for cards and square footage. It meant I had lived long enough to understand a simple truth. Ownership is not just about keys and deeds. It's about the right to choose the silence, the people at your table, and the volume of the music. I turned off the TV and listened to the house. It breathed steady and sure. The garden darkened outside the window. A branch twitched somewhere. Water clinked in a pipe. Nothing dramatic. Just a simple life that I was finally not renting out. In the hall, my beige blazer hung on the hook. I adjusted the lapel, fixing a small detail so it wouldn't build up into a bigger problem. The keys jingled on the nightstand. The metal was warm. There were no other bundles of keys next to mine. M sharp. I closed the cover, set the kettle for the morning, and turned off the light. The house was mine, but most importantly, I was home again. And in my life, just like on the remote, the volume is now regulated by me. I'm really glad you're here, and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day.